Hello friends, I wanted to share with you how I store my acrylic paints. You know, every artist goes through phases of different things, and I think this is the one I'm gonna stay with. It works so well. I have had these paints in these containers for months, and these are see, I don't like to, if I want to paint, I don't want to get the tubes out and squish it out, and I know a lot of artists do that and it works for them, it's great. But for me, I want to be able to just have the paints, take them out of the bag and start painting. I don't want to mess with all that, but it's taken some iterations to find and research and learn from other artists and combine and find a solution that works for me. So I really featured these in my landscape class. I use these paints only in that class, and so let's get to it, and I'll show you all the ways that I store them, how I mix them. I'm going to show you what the brands of the paints are, the mediums, but I keep it really simple. So here goes. All right, put my little face in the circle so I can still look up and say hello to you. All right, so in the landscape class, which is, I am going to do a video just a little bit more about it, but it's more than 8 hours. It's about 8.5 hours of footage. 6 full paintings with a full fundamentals class at the beginning. And so that whole thing is available on my website. It's called Confident and Colorful Landscapes. And my website, SuzanneAllard.com, but also I have it on Skillshare. If you remember there, it's just that there I'm just releasing one module, one painting at a time instead of the entire class at once. But to give you an idea, and the paints that I'm using, that I'm going to show you that I used for the class, I do things like this. So this is one of the paintings. I take a boring reference photo, and this is acrylic. This is a mix of golden acrylics, and I might have used a couple of Nova colors in this too. And then I also used Acryla Gouache, and this is another painting from the class. This is a picture that I took in the Douro Valley, Portugal, just a gorgeous place. And then I used the Acryla Gouache paints in the class on this painting. So I just wanted to show you, give you an example of, and if you're asking, which you might, what's the difference and why do you like the two? So gouache was my very first paint. I love gouache. It has an opacity and it has a chalkiness that I just love. And then a few years ago, I don't know how long ago, but it's relatively new in the paint world, several manufacturers developed Acryla Gouache, which is still, it's an acrylic paint, meaning that the properties it has with acrylic are that once it dries, you cannot reconstitute it with water. So like this painting, if I wet it and rub, I mean, probably eventually I could get some paint to come up, but if it were just regular gouache or true gouache, which is water-based and has no acrylic properties, then I could easily wet this and disturb it and rework it. So that's the main difference. This is Acryla Gouache, and I do love gouache. It's just that I find myself using the Acryla Gouache more. But it's a little different than acrylic. It's just, you can even feel it and see it. I don't know if you can tell. So there's no glossiness to this. It's completely opaque and chalky. Do you see that? There's no shine. Whereas acrylic, you see that shine? Yeah, that's the main difference. And you know, that we're not going to go too deep into paint properties in the class because I'll talk for 2 hours. And I have a lot to show you. All right, so let me show you the Acryla Gouache first. And there's no rhyme or reason to which of these palettes I've used which way. I just did it this way, but you could put the acrylics in these little guys too. So you saw the plastic bag, the Ziploc bag. This is a wet paper towel. It's a shop towel, but it doesn't matter. You can use a kitchen paper towel. and it's damp. It's more than damp, it's wet. It's not dripping, but it's wet. And you saw that I kept it wrapped around. Then these guys I've found, and I'll put the links to everything in the description resources below. These are little like silicone tops. See how they come off like that? And I kid you not, this has been 2 months, 3 months probably. I do, though, I will say the fridge helps. I don't always keep them in the fridge, but definitely you want to keep them out of the sun. Like I wouldn't leave them sitting here in front of this window with the sun baking in and the thing's sweating, and no, I wouldn't do all that. And so I use just these two for the paintings in the class. I don't even use all these colors, but there's something I do to the paint to help them last so long. So I add either, depending on if I want the paint to be kind of thick and more, you know, not too watered down, and viscosity of, I'm trying to think, it's thicker than heavy cream like this. What is this, like soft butter maybe? And then I use this slow dry gel. So to me, this is perfect because it gives me two properties. It gives me the slow dry, it's a retarder, but also gives me a little bit of body in my paint, or at least doesn't take away the body. Neither does the retarder because you use so little, but and so then what I do is I just squirt some of my paint in, and I am not scientific about this. It'll tell you right on here. I think it says no more than, yeah. This will slow your drying time by 40%. Let's see here. Can thin with up to 25% water, which I don't want to do because that defeats my whole purpose of the gel. But I guess it doesn't say on here, but in general, you don't want to use more than, I would say, 25% of this with your paint. So 25% of this, 75% paint ratio. You can play with it, and I'm eyeballing it. I take a scoop and I put it in there and stir it up, and that's what I do. Then I don't just leave these forever like that. I do check on them. If I'm not using them, say a week goes by, I'll open them up just like this, take my mister. You can also just use a regular spray bottle. I will say though, I do think it helps with the water that you have, if you can, to use either some sort of purified water. I actually use the water from our zero water filter that we drink, just because it's removed, you know, like if you're on a well, you're gonna have some things in there. That's not as much of a concern with the acrylic paints that I'm showing you as it is with real gouache, where you can get mold. I have not had mold in any of this. So I'll mist. You can also use distilled water that you can buy. Just keep a container near. Yeah, but they needed a little mist. Then I put the tops on the same way because the colors get in there a little bit and it just makes it fit better. Sometimes these can be tricky to get them to fit back on, so putting them on the same way helps. You kind of just have to work it like this. See how sometimes it wants to not behave, and I might have to peel a little bit, but you know, if I'm using these, this is not much trouble to get, as I'm saying that. Why is this one not going? Oh, I see why. The little lip was sticking up. Okay, and then I just cover them back up, and this I can paint like this with these little ones in the evening when we're watching TV, but you just want to make sure you get all the little silicone doohickeys sealed, that you can probably hear that snapping in, so that you know you've got a good seal on everything. And then you're gonna put them back in the rubber bag, or wrap it with a paper towel like this. And that just kind of adds some dampness there. And back in the bag. And then if I say I know I'm not going to use them tomorrow, or I don't mind sticking them in the fridge. I have the room. I have a fridge, kind of a spare fridge in the basement too. And that way, when I want to paint, I just pull that out. I'm not messing with tubes. I'm not, I mean, I'm still, color mixing on my pad, but it's so much easier. And the brands that are in here, the Acrylic Gouache that I like, just to show you, are Turner, which is this one, and it's a Japanese brand, and then Holbein. And I think Holbein is, it's made in Japan too. I don't know why I thought it was European. Okay, so both of them are made in Japan. This one is a little less expensive and just as good, in my opinion. But there are some colors that Holbein has. I do recommend, and like most artists say, mix your own colors, but there's some colors that are just fun to be able to mix with, to start with, like this one, this Juan Brilliant. It's kind of a fun color to mix into things to warm things up. So that's the Acrylic Gouache palette and paint. And I showed you the slow dry gel. You could also use, if you just wanted to keep the gel part out of it, just some retarder. This is also for slowing dry time. And this tells you no more than 1 part retarder to 6 parts paint. So I would do just a few drops and see how it works. You can always try more or less the next time. All right, so let's look at the acrylic paints. I've got 2 ways, the same way, but 2 containers. And this big container, the idea came from, she's been doing it for years, a wonderful artist, Patty Mollica. And she, I don't know if she started it, but she made it popular and wrote about it in her blog. And I've done a little bit of modification to what she does. This is the big Ziploc, by the way. It's the Jumbo Hefty. I think it might be 2.5 gallon. I got it on Amazon. Again, a paper towel is fine. This just, I happen to have you seen these Swedish dish towels? They're like a little sponge, and Costco had like a huge box for sale, so I thought, well, why not use that? It's a little, I don't know, more substantial. So that's what I'm using for my paper towel here. And this, believe it or not, is just a craft box, but of course all craft boxes are not the same. I had to work to find one that you want one that the dividers don't snap out. So a lot of them do, and that defeats the whole purpose. They need to be sealed to the bottom. So I will, I found it on Amazon. I'll link it to in the with everything else. And then what I've added is this sheet of this press and seal, because these are expensive paints. I mean, all of these are either Golden or Nova or Liquitex. And so I wanted to see how long I could get this system to last. And I bet you I've had this box, it's got to be going on 4 months. And I replenish the colors when I need to, but this is the press and seal sheet here. You could use regular saran wrap too. And so I've got that here. And you can see same situation here where I spray them when needed, and I've mixed these paints with the slow dry gel. Now, see how this one's getting a little bit low? Maybe you can, this is the fluorescent magenta by Nova. So these are either Nova, Golden, or Liquitex. The differences are that these two are a more heavy body, and the Nova is a little bit, has a little less body to it, but there's some colors that I love, like the fluorescent magenta. So But what I was going to say is they do better when they're full. These are pretty big containers because I want to be able to get a bigger brush in here. So I can see that I should add paint to some of these because it helps them not dry out. I will tell you, the first time I did this, it was a little nerve-wracking to take, you know, an entire 2-ounce tube of paint that, you know, could have cost $15, $18 and squeeze almost the whole thing into one of these little compartments thinking, is this gonna work? And so I was trusting Patty, and it does work. And then these two you can see are a little bit like flat and less body because those are golden open acrylics, which means they naturally are made to stay wet longer. I don't love them though. They're just too watery, and I don't know. I'm not in love with something about them, the consistency or something. So I'd rather just get the regular acrylics and add my retarder and control it myself. So yeah, big craft box. Can you believe it? I'm going to take very excited, first time I'm traveling to do like an art workshop overseas. I'm going to paint with Richard Claremont in 2 months in May. And I'm trying to decide what paints to take, how to take. And I've been into oils lately too, but I don't think I'm going to take those because I can't really easily bring back oil paintings. So I don't know, I may try to really pack this down and take this box like this along with some tubes. Not sure yet. Let me know if you have any ideas. I'll probably just take the tubes, but let me put this back. Sometimes I'll notice that the paper towel can smell kind of dank after a while. I don't see any mold or anything, but just kind of a, you know, yucky wet smell. So I'll just change it out. New paper towel. All right, so then this is the part that I kind of invented because I love, you know, painting in the evenings. I think I've talked about it sometimes when we're watching TV and I want everything to be smaller and I didn't want this big box. So I searched high and low. Amazon probably either loves me or hates me because for everything that I find, I have to return like 3, it seems like. I probably keep more than that. But I found the perfect little box, little mini version. And I don't know if I tipped this over. I must have tipped it over. Oh, see, you can tell these 3 are the golden open, these 4, or yeah, they are. And so they're more liquidy, but looks like I might have tipped that over. And it started to drain out a little bit. But I love this little box because I can just pop it out and look, I've got okay, let's talk about the colors. Oh my gosh, paint is so much fun. I'm going to do another video on all the colors and how I like to do color swatching in this sketchbook I have. It's fun. All right, so I mentioned the Nova Fluorescent Magenta right there. Then I think this is this is Chromium Green, and I just added a few more in this smaller container because I think I have more, I have more little spaces. This is 20, this is 4, 6, this is 24. And I think the big one is 18 maybe. So even though it's good to use a limited palette, I just was like, oh, let's put a little of this in there and a little of this in there. This is yellow green, the golden. This is a Prussian blue, and of course a teal. This is ultramarine blue, And I can't remember what they call this. Maybe they call it magnesium blue, this light blue. I know that's alizarin crimson. That, I can't remember what that is. It's a magenta of some kind. Maybe it is. I think that's just magenta. And then burnt sienna. I really like burnt sienna or burnt umber right next to it for warming up, darkening and warming up. That's kind of what I use those for. And then this is phthalo blue. Beware phthalo blue. Oh my gosh, it's so intense. We still have not worked out our relationship. Oh, I'm gonna wipe my hands off. Phthalo blue and I are still talking. We're not sure if we like each other. Cerulean blue, and then always I like to have a warm yellow and a cool yellow. So that's like a lemon yellow and a cad yellow, yellow ochre, orange, and this is a cad red light and a cad red medium. And then white you use so much of that I just filled 2 wells with white. So yeah, that's my secret weapon. Look at this. How cute is this? Now, I wouldn't travel with it. Like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, no. I don't know what I was thinking. I can't travel with this. You can't turn it. You can't turn them upside down. So keep that in mind. I keep them this way in the bag, and then they'll go in the fridge if I'm not using them like this, or even just on the floor, you know, overnight. Like I said, I don't want to keep them out in the sun and have them sweating. So yeah, just to review, the big craft box paints were used for this, acrylics in those colors, and this double one with the aqua gouache was used for this. So I hope that helps. I think it's a really, I think it just, if you can figure out a way to store your paints that works for you, then it gets you painting more. That's my opinion. You get to where you are more encouraged because it's right there, especially if you're able to have a little setup somewhere. You can quickly get to it without a lot of fussing, a lot of cleanup, a lot of prep work, and just start painting. And that's the whole idea, right? So anyway, I hope this is helpful, and I will link to all of the things that I showed you, and have fun.